alternatives today in terms of what you can do for sharpening in your shop. Cheap stuff and expensive stuff. Once you buy the expensive stuff, you'll find that the cheap things were probably just as good. So, after I bought my tour mat here, which is really nice, I found that my work sharp does just as well, really, to give a nice even sharpening. But with this one, you end up having to replace sandpaper a lot because it's a dry sanding setup. But it's a nice little setup, and it only costs like $250. This, going toward $800 with this. On the other hand, this costs about $15. So $15 for this little jig. You can put in here, get ready to do a nice straight sharpening, and some wet and dry sandpaper on a piece of glass, piece of tile, or this happens to be I think it's marble. It was in somebody's backyard. I got it at a yard sale. So that's all you need if you're not sharpening a lot, and that's not very expensive. And I like to do things as cheaply as possible. Now, in order to get the right angle on the blade, you can set it up according to, I have these little niches set up for the different angles on the bevels. So you just put that out there, or make one up like this, and you're ready to go. On the other hand, let's see, I should have a screwdriver here. There it is. On the other hand, I discovered one of these, the angle gauge, and they cost about maybe $30, $25, $30, depending on whether they're on sale or not. You can always check your angle zero it out. Okay, this is not quite 25. So it wasn't quite accurate. So you just move it until you have the right angle on it. Now, the angles of the bevel or bezel, depending on whether you're in England or here, can vary. They can be anywhere 20, 25, 30, even 35 or higher for hard wood. Generally, they're at about 25 degrees. 30 degrees is fine. If you're not right on, if you use the same methods with your tools every time, you'll be consistent and it won't matter. So, turn this on. One thing with these that I have, I think I got them at Harbor Freight, I can't remember. But they use batteries up pretty quickly. So anyway, I made a box up where I could put all my sharpening stuff and then work on top of it. And that worked very well for a long time. I'm pretty happy with this setup. Okay, so we have the cheap way, we have the expensive way, and that's where we're using steel plates, you know, anywhere from $60 to $80 or $90 for one of these guys. And this is 80 grit, and you can use water on these. I use water and with a little dishwashing soap in it, a little Dawn in it. So I start at 80. You just go and you vary the grain until you get down to a pretty fine grain. Then you can hone it if you want to. Actually, you don't really need to go past 600, although the wet and dry sandpaper, if you get a package, you can get higher quality or you can get Harbor Freight. This one goes up to 1200, which is nice. 1200. Okay. So the main thing is you want to get as close to that sharp two planes coming together as you can. As you sharpen it, you probably all know that if you hold this up to light and look at it, if it's not quite sharp yet, you'll see a little light on the edge reflecting. You want to get rid of that. Once that's gone, the blade is sharp and you can knock off any fuzz here on the edge. So
you can also look at it with a magnifying glass.
That's probably good for old guys, for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
You also don't shave the back of your hand.
Yeah, well, maybe. Thumbnail, shave the thumbnail. Okay, so I'm ready to do this the cheap way first here, and then we'll go to this, and then maybe it would be a good idea to go to John's Waterstones after we do this, and then I'll show you the oil stones, and then we can deal with all the expensive equipment. So on here, I just glued down some wet and dry with 3M. So that's easy to do. Then you can either dump water or squirt water. Yeah, this is real, I just spec this on the surface and make it pretty wet. Like this is 80 grit here. So I'm going to wet this down a little. And of course this works with all of it down to, I think this is 400 here. Just to show you how it can work. Now, you don't need to really go beyond 400 if you don't want to. This is like a half a length of sheet. It's a nice size. I have a couple of other sizes here. They're not quite as good. And we have Bill's setup here too. He made a nice little setup.
I think that's a little short though. I'd like to make it longer.
Now, is that paper supposed to be used wet or dry?
Dry.
Dry. The wet and dry seems to work the best. Okay, so now we have that set up, and we can just run it back on here. I think I'll just do it on here because it really is sharp enough already. And that's all you need to do, and that'll get your blade started. Now you can look at it and see if, in fact, it's the right angle. This isn't quite the right angle. It was measured according to what it should be, but this angle is a little sharper than, or a little more oblique than the other one. So, move it a little bit and see what happens. And that's all you have to do. Just hold it like this and work it, and you get what you need. Now, another thing that you need to know about plane blades is that the back of the plane blade should be flat too. So one way to do it, I'm going to do it the easy way here. The Tormac's all set up. They say that you can just take it on the side on the Tormac, although I like to, most of the time with a lot of the things that I do, I like to have the wheel running away from the blade. It's running toward the blade now, so if I were sharpening, it would be running toward the blade, which I'll show you later. But, yeah.
Mike, a question. If you're trying to get that plate flat, why wouldn't you just put it on a lapping plate and
You
lap it in?
You
rather,
would.
rather than mess with a wheel.
Well, I have this, and it's fast.
Ah.
Or so I thought. And all I have to do is run it on here a little bit.
But
and it'll be
get a little
done.
bit off, a little bit down, whereas
No,
a lapping,
you just be careful,
yeah.
and it works fine.
Wow.
And that's what they say in the manual, too.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lapping plate, for sure you're not going to
Oh, yeah,
lock it.
like on here.
Yeah.
For you who are in a shop
Where you've got
without
a full
a lot
sheet
of
of paper
tools.
on a piece of glass.
right here, same thing.
Yeah.
Just runs back and forth. And there's a better way.
Well, you run figure eights is what we were taught.
That's right. You do run it in figure eights. That's the best way to do it, is to run it in figure eights. That way you don't have any marks. It's always good to run it in figure eights, but I don't always do it that way because I'm lazy.
And then reverse it every like that. So
Yeah.
you're for sure.
You can see where that's starting to flatten.
You can see a little,
Say that again.
getting a little bit shiny. Where it's,
Yeah, it's shiny. Taking the dirt and this is a slick blade from the workshop. It was kind of half done, so I'm just using it as a so you just keep going until it's all shiny. Now, once you have that done, you know you can do the sharpening. So the sharpening there, which I just showed you up here, is continued. I show it how you do it on here. Same thing. Once you learn one technique, it's the same all the way through. So 80, about 220, I think. It says coarse, and then fine and extra fine. So I like to do all of those, but I can stop at fine and then hone it on this ceramic. Or if you have a honing leather with tin oxide or Tripoli or one of those kinds of things, chrome oxide, you can hone it. So it's the same deal here. A little water. Just pull it back. And if you need a little camber, like if you have a jack plane, you want a 1/32 camber on it or so. So what you do is you just press like four times here, 4 in the middle, 4 there, and do that until you can't stand to do it anymore. And you'll end up with a pretty nice little camber on it. But this is the same deal. That's all you do. And notice you're not going back, and you might roll it back, but don't put any pressure on it. this pressure comes as you pull on it. Now, if you have a wide blade, they make these things wider and they work pretty well. If you want to use a good quality tool, the Veritas jig works really well. And there's a jack plate over here. Let's get that blade. No, smoothing point. Looks like it has a little back bevel on it. You don't really need to do a back bevel. They usually, the reason for a back bevel is that when you're working, you can resharpen quickly without it taking an hour or so. I tend to like the flat bevels as opposed to the concave bevels, which is obvious here. Because you have better support at the edge when you're cutting. So for that reason, all of these wheels are going to give you a little concavity. Even this one will. But this one won't. This will give you a nice flat bevel. So I really didn't need this. Okay, so we'll line this one up.
You didn't get the little alignment gauge that goes with that?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get this in here and then I'm going to put the gauge on it. So step one is get this in here. And then step two is get the gauge. You want to get it centered. Then it has its own gauge as part of talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that just slides on here. And depending on what you have set on here, you have the same color on the gauge. So to get your blade set according to that color, that's all you have to do. Now I'm set at 30 degrees for a blade that I just made not too long ago. So what I want is 25 degrees. And I just go with the gauge. I don't usually check it because it's going to be the same every time. There you go, it's 25. And so you can see the little niche here where it stops it. So it takes a lot of fiddling around. With me, it takes more fiddling around than most because I have no coordination. And less. The older I get, the less I have. Never did that much. I used to spill my milk until I was like 12. I was trying to drink a glass of milk.
The solution is to stop drinking milk.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Just go straight to beer, and then nobody ever spilled beer.
I never spilled beer.
I wish I could say the same.
Initially.
Yeah. You never spilled the first one.
Okay. Almost there. You want to take a little nap while I'm setting this up? Go ahead.
Let me sneak in a question. That red clamp you say is available from Harbor Freight?
No. This was just an older one. It just happened to be red. Different company.
Oh, okay. But
Generally, there's.
Harbor Freight does sell low end.
I don't think Harbor Freight sells this. I think I got this at Woodcraft.
Okay. And you're saying like $15?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's affordable.
which is a good price.
Yeah.
It used to be 12. I think they started out years ago at 7.
Well, yeah, everything's gone up.
Okay. So it's all set up. Looks pretty good. Everything screwed down. Get this off of here. And I'm ready to go. Just to check, just to see if it actually is right. I'm looking for my little gauge, which I probably put away where I can't find it.
Did you end up putting it back inside the box?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
I put it in the box?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need it. Forget it. So then you just start off with the water, and I end up doing about 60 of these at a time. Now, if you want to really check on what's happening here, you can always mark it and then run it through a couple of times to see where it brightens up, and you might have to make a few adjustments. And that works fine. And that's what you do over on the Tormac too. So let's see how close we are. Not too bad. It's like 2/3 of the way back there.
Can I get a snapshot of that? While we're
Action oriented here?
I could, if I wanted to be real picky, I could advance this just a touch, but I think because of the other bevel that was on there, best to just leave it alone. Yeah, that's getting down fast. Generally, it takes forever to do it this way. It's coming right along, and it will go down until you don't have this bright edge anymore, which I'm not going to do because it'll take another half hour to do that. And then I'd stop here and then do a final honing on this, which is really, really fine grain, and it'll polish it, really polish it up, and you will have no, yeah, even with that, it's polished up the little bit that I did. Remember, I'm not putting any pressure on going forward, only when it comes back. Yeah. So, is this built?
Yeah, it's somebody loaned it to me. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's not mine. It's a
You
piece
can
I brought
finish
in.
it up if you want to.
Okay.
All right, now, so you know how the paper works. Now, here's a quick and dirty way to do the paper. I'm not sure it's going to work with a piece of paper cut in half. And this is the shafts here, and that's what it's for. And it's been laying here since we moved in, I think.
It's got a little dust on it.
Yeah. So we ought to put this back with the sharpening stuff back in the container back there.
Must have been laying there since before we got the dust for it.
Yeah, it could be. It's not. It's dirt.
Oh, it's pure 99 stuff there.
Yeah.
Rat drop in.
Yeah. Okay. So, I've been soaking some paper in here. Too nice and soaked. Now the water should hold the paper down here, but it probably won't, because it had a little curl to it in the first place. I'll just take a sheet and do it. Now it isn't going to hold it. it was a good thought, though. So I'll just take one of these. $1,000. Okay. Do 1,000. Okay, the water, we'll hold it down on there and it'll work just fine. So you don't even really have to glue it down. Okay? So, cheap, but it works. You can either glue it or do it this way. More expensive. With water, it works. They say you can use cutting oil or turpentine or something like that on it if you want to. But I just use the water and it's on. And then go to the old school stuff. My father-in-law was a wood carver and sculptor for years. This is basically his stuff here. And he used old Arkansas stones, and they have a variety of roughness on these too. Or you can get them, you know, the two-sided variety. Supposedly when you get them new, you should, this is a good one here, you should soak them in light oil for long enough to impregnate them. Again, if you want a good cutting oil, all you have to do is take 30 weight oil, two 30 weight oils to one turpentine if you're in business. But he used 3-in-1 oil. All the years he worked with this stuff, with his chisels and wood head and his blades. He just used 3-in-1 oil. And this is a hard stone here, the Arkansas stone. And now I'm just going to hone it, or just touch this up. When you go to touch your blade up, you don't have to do it this way. You can just feel the edges of the bevel. So it feels good, and then all you can just go back and forth on it, and it will give you your little honing or your little sharpening while you're doing your work in the shop. And it's pretty quick. And the only problem with the only problem with the oil stones is that they take longer than these more modern ones. But they work just fine. They worked for like 40 or 50 years for my father-in-law. So. And he did some really nice carving in his day. When I got his gougings, they were a mess. He didn't take very good care of them toward the end. He did that on here. So this is very hard too. It's a white one, Arkansas stone. And usually the hardest ones are black. And I had a black one a while ago. Yeah. I got this at a yard sale. This is a real old time one, but it's the hard one. And it'll work just fine. And it's pretty flat too. I don't even think I have to flatten it out. I need to make a container for it, though. It's always good then to have these, the wood beams. It's always good to have a box for these things so you can just take care of them.
Plus they're messy.
And they are messy. Not that bad, you know. I'm a slob, so I don't.
You don't want oily fingerprints all over your carving, though.
No. You have to pay a little attention there. Like this is, I think this might be a Norton, and this is what he'd use on his gougers. It's as simple as that, you know. Get a nice coating of light oil on there, and it'll work great. I used it for a long time until I came up here, got more into it. But depending on what kinds of gougings and cutting tools you have, he had a whole variety of little pieces that little oil sticks that he could.
You can reshape those on a grinder too.
Yeah, for sure.
Not hard at all.
Yeah. Now, if you want some cheap carving tools that aren't too bad, again, Harbor Freight is good. They have some nice little carving gouges, but the bevel on them isn't good. So you will have to regrind the bevel, and then they're nice after that. Yeah, you know, a 45-degree bevel is
it's not going to work. And they've got all kind of grinding marks and sawtooth.
Yeah, but you clean that off. It's a nice little tool. Have you done that?
No, I've seen them though. I've looked at them and thought, I don't want to mess with this.
And this is a hard Arkansas stone too. So if you need a side that needs sharpening, you can sharpen the blade with this. Yard sale. Okay, so simple. This is easy to do too. If you want to go a little beyond sandpaper and go to this, that works really well. And then, keep them clean, ready to put away. And there are some other little stones, same deal, for gouges. And then John has some water stones, pretty nice, easy to do. You need some space, Richard?
I know I can make it.
I kind of never got into water stones because they wear away.
They do, and I'll explain that. This is my Sharpening Bible. This is written by Leonard Lee, the owner of Lee Valley, and also the designer of most of the tools. He's an engineer, I think. And anything you'd ever want to sharpen, it tells how to do it in there. Even the little things on the marking gauges, the little round wheels, anything like that, it's all in there.
So, the advantage of water stones is that they're a little bit faster than
the oil stones and stuff, and they do a really nice job. I mean, it just leaves an incredible surface. So what I've got is, this is 1,000 grit right here, and you have to soak it. Has to be, in fact, when I'm actually using this, which I don't anymore, because now I've got diamond stones, but when I was using this a lot, I had it in a little plastic tub that was always wet. It was always full of water, so this thing was always soaking. And at first I thought that would be a bad idea because it would dissolve the glue, but it doesn't. Somehow or other it works. So, let me see. I'm not going to actually sharpen anything, but maybe I could just do this. This is exactly the same thing, back, pull it forward like that. And I, usually do it. If the blade is at all dull, it might take 50 strokes or more to get it, but you have to just keep looking at it. And I also do that thing with the marking pen of, like marking fluid in metalwork. You just mark it and then see where it wears off. One difference between me and Mike is that I do kind of like that, the back bevel on my planes, not on chisels, because on chisels you don't want it to tip up just where it's cutting. On the plane, the back bevel is on top, so it doesn't have any effect unless you've got a bevel up plane or a bevel down plane. But anyway, and then a lot of people will also put a back bevel on or a secondary bevel, I'm sorry, on either plane or a chisel. And they do that by just tipping it up just a couple degrees and then giving it about 5 or 6 strokes. And that puts, what it really does is it cleans up, it gives you a completely fresh plane. The definition of sharp is an intersection of 2 planes. And that gives you a perfect plane on both edges if you put both those bevels on, and quickly. That's the other advantage of it. So
Now, the drawback to this,
let me see. I thought I brought a little pencil, but I can't find it now. Not a pencil. I need a pencil. As Mike pointed out, the drawback to these is that they wear much more quickly than any other kind of stone. And so what you have to do is do that. This is a flattening stone, a Norton flattening stone, and they're not very expensive. It's about an extra 30 to 40 bucks. You see where there's still some lines showing. That's where it's a little bit hollow. When that disappears, which is not what it's going to do. Practically gone now. What I do then is I do it again and mark it again, because I'm always afraid that.
Here, quick snapshot.
I'm always afraid that this slurry that is, there's a slurry that forms on here, which is a mixture of the water and the glue and the abrasive particles from there. I'm afraid that that's going to get in between here and the line and wipe it out prematurely. So I do it a second time, and if it very quickly eliminates, see, it's still there a little bit. And that's why I do it. So I'm not going to go
hollowed out, meaning the center of
the center of the stone is a little bit deeper because it's worn more there.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is a 1,000-grit stone, and this is it's pretty aggressive. It's a quick way to get a pretty good edge. I don't usually, with water stones, I've never gone any lower than that, but I do have the diamond stones that go down to, I got one that's 350, one that's 600, and then 1,000.
Anyway, refine it. What grade? Use 1,000 initially, what's your final?
This is 10,000.
So that's what we use.
And what you do with this, you don't have to soak this one. Don't ask me why, but that's just the way it is. You just wet it. And then this is called a Nagura stone. This is all Japanese stuff. Water stones are basically Japanese water stones. This is called a Nagura stone, and this thing is pretty hard, and it's hard to work up much of a slurry, for which you need the slurry, because that's what does the cutting. This thing adds the slurry, so what you do is you just do this. And you can see that it's forming a slurry, which is almost entirely from this. And then you just do the same thing.
Does that slurry stone come in different grades then?
No, not that I know of. I've only seen it in just the one form. So I think that's probably it. But this will put a shine on your blade. And some people even go up to 12,000 or even higher. But it seems a little crazy to me, because the first time you put your chisel or plane into something, it's going to lose that level of perfection. So that's. Oh, and then he was showing you his little slip stones, and I've got some of those too that are also water stones. This one's been dropped, but again, like I mentioned, see what happens. This one started out being round, and I did something with it, I don't know what, and now it's not round anymore. But I can easily make it round again on a grinder like that, just a regular grinder. You know, or I could, you know, do this, I suppose, indefinitely, but it would take a long time that way. So this, you know, these are for the inside of gouges. For the bevel, of course, is on the outside usually, not always, but almost always. So what you use this for is to remove the wire edge that forms on the inside of the bevel. So you can usually get rid of that much easier than using these, though. So I don't hardly ever use these anymore. I've got some leather. I just took some thick leather and I folded it around like that and stitched it and rub it on the honing compound and then use that on the inside. And it, you know, it's flexible, so it accommodates the shape of the blade pretty well. And then, you know, it takes off the wire edge and doesn't do much else. Maybe it gives a little bit of polish to the metal, but it's not really that important. The important part on a gouge is the outside of the bevel. So
you need to remember to use the rough side of the leather too.
yeah, there's two schools of thought about that, but I kind of agree with you. I think the rough side is it holds the compound better.
Yeah.
For one thing.
Yeah. It's like when I was showing a Tormac earlier, we had a couple of different compounds for the leather there, and the chrome oxide is pretty aggressive. That's the green stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then I used the white. Okay, not rouge. Rouge is red.
I know what you mean. It's honing compound.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
It looks like rouge, but it's white.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit rougher than rouge. Rouge mainly just polishes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, another.
Yeah.
ancient moment.
A lost bit of data.
Yeah, but I like tin oxide too. We used to use tin oxide on leather to polish stones in the lapidary class too, but the tin oxide would work well, nicely. Okay.
I just know
Tripoli is what I was looking
Yeah.
for.
Where do you get the polishing compounds?
Well, Amazon or Harbor Freight or any place like that.
Yeah.
Grizzly.
You can get a set of 3 little blocks of it. So, yeah.
And
Yeah.
each block is a lifetime supply for you.
Yeah.
No kidding. Everything got buys on it.
Yeah.
What I've been doing is, you know, I've
Second
probably got 8 of those, and
Yeah.
different, you know, 3 greens and 2 blacks, and I don't know how it
Yeah.
all happened, but I just cut an end off and I give them to people. You know, here you can make your strop with this.
Yeah.
And for the most part, you know, I mean, obviously Mike is very conversant with all this stuff, and he understands the different grits and all that. I don't, and I just use them pretty much interchangeably, and it doesn't seem to make any difference.
I like to use the, well, yeah, they're all.
They all work, you know. Some of them might be a little faster, but it's, you know, the amount of work that I do with that is not enough to make a difference, a noticeable difference to me.
The one that would take the longest and do the least would be the jeweler's rouge.
The red, yeah.
But triple.
Another thing I did with some of that stuff is I took some of those blocks, and it's just wax with an abrasive embedded in it, and I melted a part of one, and I added about an equal amount of mineral oil and made a paste. And then you can take a popsicle stick and spread the paste on your strop, and you've got this beautiful gliding surface. And for putting a polish, there's nothing to beat that. It's just wonderful.
That'd work really well on here too.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. Yeah. This is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's ready to be recharged.
Yeah. So that's basically it. Unless you want to see should I show them the grinder?
Oh yeah. But now, roughly, what kind of pricing is involved with getting the water stones?
Oh, it's pretty equivalent to diamond stones, a little bit less, but not much.
Okay.
You know, I don't think anybody is much bothering with water stones anymore because
Yeah.
for practically the same price you can get diamond stones that
Yeah.
essentially never wear out. Well, they do wear out, but they last much longer and they don't get hollow. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about flattening.
Mine have been used and used. They've been used here, they've been used at home. They're still working pretty well.
Yeah. One thing you got to watch out for, though, especially if you're using water on them, is that if you don't clean them off afterwards, the metal that comes off the blade will rust,
Yeah,
and then it looks like hell. But
Yeah.
you know, it comes off the next time you use it.
yeah.
You know, the iron, the steel in the actual base of it, I don't think that rusts, but it's just the metal that comes off the blade.
Every once in a while, if you go over it with turpentine,
Yeah.
clean it out, clean it off. These are about ready for that. But,
I've just gotten in the habit of using oil on my diamond stones just because then it doesn't rust.
it works fine.
But you have to be constantly wiping and cleaning up after yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty much like using the oil stones. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Okay, so, let's see, I'll just set this.
so you see a lot of alternatives here.
So this is just an ordinary, everyday 3,600 RPM grinder. You know, there's nothing special about it at all. What's special about it is I got this at Lee Valley,
Yeah,
and you know, it's just basically a tool rest, but it's completely adjustable, and it's got a little cutout here for the, you know, for the wheel, which is handy. So then, I didn't bring mine. I've got a little plastic parallelogram thing that has different angles on it for the, you know, the different angles that you're likely to need, like 25, 30, 35, and set that on there, and then you can set the angle that way. But you can also do it just by, and this is how I do it. I mean, my angles on all my tools are already established, and I'm not grinding new angles, so I just, well, I don't have a chisel, but imagine this is a chisel.
oh, you want a chisel?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. No, you don't have to imagine anything. It really is a chisel. So anyway, you just put it on there and you look from the side. And this is a torment trick too. And you just, you know, you get it so that the wheel is touching the middle of the bevel, but not the heel or the tip. And then, and this is for if you drop your chisel on the concrete floor and the big chip comes out of it, or you hit a nail. You know, these things happen even to us experts. So when that happens, then this little thing comes with. So this thing is designed so that this pin is in line with this. So when you rest your chisel against the screw under here and this pin, it's square to this. And this rides in this groove, which is square to the wheel. So all you have to do is turn on. I'm not going to do it because I want to wreck this chisel of somebody's. Yours? Yeah.
It's already wrecked.
Well, no, it looks, I could wreck it a lot worse. Anyway, then you just go back and forth like this until you're, you know, you've got a square end, and you can.
I made a wooden version of that that works pretty well. Too.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen that.
Actually, at the next open house, I'll bring in my wheels and have that on it. People look at it.
Can't use it right now, but when you take it out of the jig, then you can check with the square to make sure it's square, and that is very important, I think. For me, it is.
Yeah.
The chisel just doesn't work as well if it isn't really square. So, oh, and then my little old guy trick
You keep a little container of water so you don't overheat the.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yes, that's right. I forgot to mention that. It's very easy, especially with 3,600 RPM, to burn the end. And in spite of it being high-speed steel, if it turns blue,
It's too late.
yeah, you don't want it to turn blue.
So you say this is the 3,000 RPM wheel here, the high speed?
Yeah,
3,200?
yeah, 36, 3450.
Yeah. Woodcraft sells a low speed grinder. It's 1750.
Yeah, that would be much better.
Yeah, it's like 120 when it's on sale.
Right, it's a Rikon.
Yeah, it's 8-inch.
It's a really nice machine, but I didn't have one.
Yeah, I have one in the studio to use sharpening, turning tools.
Say, I've got a beat up blade.
And I still don't have one.